Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time watching, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending your time with me. I hope the information that I share with you is helpful. Ultimately, my goal is to help you to know yourself. And why would that be important? So that you can realize your true potential, so that you can realize your own power. And it brings me greatest joy to share that information with you. So if you're into that sort of thing, if you'd like to feel more empowered in your life, then I hope you stay. I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Click the notification button, the like button if you like, and share this information with other people if you feel that that somehow they would benefit from this information. My team and myself would be very grateful. Sorry, I keep looking at the corner. I'm used to doing a different camera. For those of you who are returning, thank you so much for being here. Again, without you, I wouldn't do what I do. I love what I do for the most part, unless I'm resisting, which is a lot. But nonetheless, once I get past my resistance, I get to experience this universal flow of information, and that makes me feel really, really good. It's a very good flow to be in. So thank you for being part of my journey. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to love ourselves, apparently. And what does loving ourselves really mean? What does it mean to love ourselves? It means many different things. And we're going to talk about few of those things that can be implemented and applied in our everyday life. But if I was to just kind of put an umbrella on the subject of what does loving yourself really means? To me, it symbolizes total and utter self-acceptance. Total and utter self-acceptance. And think about it for a moment. Can you imagine what it would feel like if you totally accepted yourself? You may not like some of the things that you're accepting, but you are just totally at peace with who you are. Can you imagine just feeling for a moment what it would be like to be at total peace with yourself? It's almost unimaginable. Why is it unimaginable? It's because it's not where we live. Which means if we don't live in that wonderful space, we must live somewhere else. And to experience this inner peace means to no longer live life from a space of separation. And we are all beings who are unique, but we're not separate. We cannot be separate because we are made up of energy, and there is no separation of energy. Energy just simply is. It's connected to everything and everyone all at once. But our human experience tells us otherwise, and that's perfectly fine. We're going to talk about how to love yourself being a human. And why is that important? Because if we say that to love yourself is essentially to accept yourself, when we finally accept ourselves as we are, doesn't mean we have to like it. It doesn't mean we can't improve. But when we accept ourselves wholly and wholeheartedly, our ability to accept others will be magnified. And the more we accept others, the more we live in a unified field. So in order to experience this oneness with yourself, which brings a lot of peace, we have to learn to detach from our separation or our illusion of separation. And ego is very much attached to the illusion of separation. So to identify as the ego, we identify with the separation, but we are connected all at the same time. So how can we be connected yet separate both at once? I think it's called a paradox. It is your human thinking, your human beliefs, your human ego that tells you that you're separate when you are actually not. So how can we live in this unified field while we are identifying ourselves with separation? Well, we can't. We have to stop identifying ourselves from the perspective of separation. In other words, we have to be conscious of the fact that we are not separate. And therefore, whatever I do affects you because we're all energetically based. And that is a very important step in our evolution right now, I feel. And how is that? Okay, how is that tied to self-love? Well, when you're in separation of yourself, you don't love yourself because you are in separation of yourself. You are not in acceptance of yourself. That is not self-love. So the more we reject aspects of who we are for whatever reason, and we have many reasons, the more we are living in separation of our truth, of our nature, which is love. Our nature is love. But we don't identify ourselves as that for the most part. Why? Because we live in the ego, which is all separation. So how can we have an ego but experience oneness both at the same time? Now, here's a unique opportunity where we can make a massive difference in the world. To experience oneness while having an ego simply means don't attach too much to the ego. Understand that ego is your experience, but it's not who you are, which means if you're not that, you must be also something else. And that brings you more to this unified field. And I'm asking the question how, because it's not really making sense. The more we are at peace with ourselves, the more we are at peace with our world. It doesn't mean that there is always peace in the world, but because of our own internal peace, we have a more peaceful perspective of something that is actually not peaceful. That's actually really interesting. Yes, because when we're in that space, we often have a much higher perspective. And from the highest perspective, right now, you and I are beings of light, which is essence of all that is. There is nothing else. And we are particles of it, and we are having a human experience. And in this human experience, we experience a lot of separation. But we no longer have to do that anymore. We don't have to keep creating and identifying ourselves from this perspective of separation. We are standing at a choice right now where we can choose something different. So, how do we separate ourselves from another? We focus on the differences. That's what makes us separate. So rather than focusing on the differences, what if we focus on the sameness? What makes us all the same? What makes us all the same? What makes us all the same, for one, is our own human nature. We have our own human nature, and that is really important because we are human. So how do we live within this human nature while we also identify ourselves as bigger than that, or we identify ourselves as part of the source? How do we embody being this powerful, but also being very limited both at the same time? That's an interesting thing. It's a paradox, right? the way to bridge that together is what I'm seeing is to start to remember what is it that this is all for? What is this all for? What is this life for? To simply put, life is for the experience. We are here for the experience of life itself. And I just get chills when I say that. Which means we get to experience life however we choose, however we want. Of course, our human ego mind will say that's not possible. I'm not getting what I want. Oh, yes, you are, from a much higher perspective. So, how does this connect to the idea of self-love? It's going back to the more we are in separation of ourselves, the less we will identify as oneness. On the other hand, when we release almost the resistance of letting go of the ego and not disengage from our ego, but distance ourselves from the ego, because ego is very short-sighted, it's very limited. The more we distance ourselves from the ego, the more we are able to see and identify ourselves as this other thing, this powerful, immense part of source or all that exists. So we actually can live in a world where we have both ego and this higher perspective. But in order to do that, we have to be willing to let go of our older perspective. So we live in times where a lot is happening in terms of the world changing its perspectives or its perspective. And depending on what perspective the world adopts, based on that perspective, the world or people will experience direct result of what that is. So we are in a profound change of consciousness right now. Consciousness, which affects our thinking, our belief systems, and everything we know about ourselves as far as a belief system. So many of us are being challenged right now a lot. Why are we being challenged? Because the outdated systems are no longer working anymore. The new ones haven't been put in place yet. So we are in a process of letting go of something, but not really attaching to anything new yet. We are somewhere in between. So to put it in a different way, we are in a space of tremendous growth and potential. It's magnified right now. Okay? It is in this space that we are in right now energetically, where humans can make profound changes and profound changes. And humanity is undergoing a process that is all about re-establishing itself from a different angle. How do I say it in a different way? Humanity is at a point where humanity is asking itself, what is it to be a human? What does it mean to be a human? What does it mean to be a human? Here's the thing. It can mean whatever you want. To be a human is to be whatever you want. Think about that for a moment. To be a human is to be whatever you want. My mind can't even grasp it as like, what? What do you mean? It's almost impossible. So each and every individual in his or her unique way is asking themselves this question: what does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be a human? What does it mean for me to have this? What does it all mean? What does it all mean? We are questioning meaning in life, what gives us meaning and what the meanings are. And we are redefining our meanings. And that is a very big part of our structures, is we give meaning to everything. So for example, what we have found meaningful at some point, we find that it's not as meaningful anymore. It's like it's served its purpose. And because it's served its purpose, it's got to go so that something else can come in and replace it in a different way, in a different form. So I'm here right smack in the middle of uprooting our belief systems that make us ask a fundamental question. What is my purpose? Why am I here? What is it all for? What does it all mean? And those are profound questions that when human asks him or herself can have, can create a lot of ripples effects, because what we are finding right now as humanity, that things that used to work don't work anymore or are beginning not to work anymore. Doesn't matter how hard we try, it's just not working. What used to work doesn't work anymore. And if it's not working, then it's not working. Then we have to have a way of finding something that works better. So we are releasing the old in terms of what used to work in favor of bringing something new, but we don't know what that new is yet. We can't quite see what the new is yet. Here's the thing. The new can be whatever we want it to be. The new can be whatever we want it to be. It's mind-boggling, isn't it? Because it means the future, the new, isn't decided yet. We collectively decide what our future is going to be. We are that powerful. We are that powerful. We decide our future collectively. So whatever it is that we collectively are going through right now, all the turmoil that you see all over the place and internally with each person to varying degrees, these turmoils create abrupt changes. And they're often abrupt because they have been hidden from the surface for a very long time. And it's like the universe says, okay, the spell is over, everything come out. So I'm not exactly sure what it means, but it could mean, what does it mean to come out? To come out is to know the truth. It's to realize what truth really is. And it's on so many different levels. First and foremost, the truth is you are part of source. There is nothing else. There is some force out there that cannot be identified. It seems like, well, it can't be because it's all there is. There is this force, nobody can figure out what it is, that permeates everything and everyone and everything in existence. We are all part of that. Like it or not. Like it or not. That's the ultimate truth. It's not something you believe, it's something you know. It's not something you believe, it's something you know. How do you know? You know because it's who you are. You know because it's who you are. Everything else is just an illusion. It's a good illusion, but it's an illusion. Everything else is just a dream. We are all dreaming our lives to life. Oof, that is almost too big for my brain to grasp. We are creating life each and every day, and we are the masters of it. And very powerful at that. So what's coming out right now is the truth and the understanding of who we really are. Yes, we're human, but we're so much more than that. We are all beings of light, whatever you want to call it. And there is immense power in knowing that, embodying that. For one, it tells you you're not separate. And remember, when you feel not separate, when you feel whole, when you feel oneness, there is tremendous level of peace with that. Who does not want peace? Can I have some non-peace, please? No. Everyone wants peace. How do you get to this peace? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's actually quite simple, though not easy by any stretch of the imagination. To have peace is to feel peace from within. In other words, peace comes from within, not from outside, from within. So if it comes from you, it must be in you already. It must be. There is no other way. If it comes from you, it must be in you. Perhaps we just haven't found it yet, or we haven't found enough of it yet. So if peace is inherently within us, but we don't feel peace, what's the problem? Well, it's all the layers of how we understand ourselves. First and foremost, when we understand ourselves as separate, we are no longer as much at peace as we are when we embody our oneness. Okay? And that has all to do with belief systems and rigid thinking. So if you've ever wondered who you are, who made you, what made you, it's undefinable. It cannot be grasped by the human mind. It just can't be. Just can't be. Trying to understand source of all that is with a limited mind, where the source of all that is virtually unlimited. So trying to understand something that's unlimited with a limited thinking doesn't work. Whatever we call it, whatever we say it is, we're going to limit it. That's it. That's just the way it is. It's fine. You are part of that. You are part of source. You may not identify yourself as that, but this is, can I say, the ultimate truth? And because you are part of something so powerful, you too are powerful. It's process of association. You're powerful by being associated with all that is. And that power is always within you, like it or not, it's always within you. Then why do I feel disempowered? That's a great question. That's actually a question with a lot of different layers. You don't feel very powerful for various reasons. If you've learned how to disempower yourself because you felt disempowered when you were growing up, then you are in a space of disempowerment. You take power away from you all the time. You just don't know you're doing it. You're using your power to disempower yourself. How crazy is that? Because it's mostly unconscious. So a question for you is, how do you disapprove of you? How do you disapprove of you? How do you reject you? Because those are not coinciding with loving yourself. When you reject yourself, you are not in acceptance of yourself, which is synonymous with self-love. Stop rejecting yourself. In order to stop rejecting yourself, stop judging yourself so much. We are all very judgmental creatures. When I was tuning into this energy, I was trying to imagine a world without judgments, and my mind couldn't comprehend it. It's like, what's that? It's just so deeply ingrained in our DNA. Judgment is so deeply ingrained. But we can learn to judge less. Can we not? Yes, of course we can. The moment we identify that we do judge and become conscious of it, we can make a choice to judge less, starting with ourselves. And when we go from being judgmental and disapproving to being loving and kind, This is what's called self-love. If you want to know how to love yourself, do that. Stop being so critical of yourself. Stop being so disapproving of yourself. It doesn't mean you don't have some things that you'd like to change, that you'd like to improve. By all means, go ahead, do it. But not because that's going to make you somehow better. You are more than enough already. I can't change myself. I'm too old. Okay, you just decided. You're that powerful. You powerfully declare to yourself, I am not going to change, but go away. All right, no problem. But just so you know, you're using your power to do that. Nothing wrong with it. Be conscious. I said, give me a list of what is so important that everyone needs to know. So first and foremost, collectively, I was shown the idea of the Ten of Swords. And the Ten of Swords is a very mental card. For those of you who know tarot, I know very little about tarot. I know the basic stuff. And the Ten of Swords represents an end, a defeat. We are at an end of a cycle in terms of how we think, what we think, how we use our mind and our critical thinking. We are at the end of that. We are at the end of being slave to our thoughts. We are putting end to being slaves to our thoughts and our programming, which symbolizes a brand new beginning. Because after 10 comes the Ace of Swords, or at least I see that as a cycle. So we might be feeling a little bit of an upheaval in our mental minds, but that's because we are climbing, let's use that analogy, we're climbing to a space where we can have a much higher perspective. So our minds are being challenged right now a lot. Okay? And because we're going through these challenging times, it's an opportunity for us to rethink what we think, how we think, and why we think what we think. I don't think I can repeat that one. We are choosing to have different thoughts. We are choosing to have different belief systems. How? By becoming aware of what our thoughts are and what our programmings are, so that we can no longer be slave to them. It's like having your car being in control of you. What? What? Yet that's what we do with our belief systems. We are slaves to our outdated, old, limiting belief systems. Most of us don't even know it because it's so deep. So we're collectively experiencing a certain level of depth in terms of emotions coming up. It's like our feelings and emotions are being stirred up. They're being stirred up. And with that comes a lot of commotion and anger and angst. But that's because something is about to burst. Something is about to burst. So even though we're going through this upheaval, we are in the process of reaching a new level. And it's a perspective. But until we reach that level, we're not gonna know what that level is until we actually reach it. So we have to trust it somehow. Number one. Number two, we have to learn to trust in ourselves more. We have to learn how to trust in ourselves more. I'm asking the question, why is that important? And they said, think about it. When you trust yourself, you're more trusting with the world. When you trust yourself, you're more trusting with the world. I'm not sure exactly how that equation works, but that's what I'm being told. When you trust yourself, you are more trusting of the world. Trust is a good thing. When we learn to trust ourselves, we are far less looking for others to solve our problems. If we don't know how to solve our problems and somebody else solves our problem, if we don't know how to solve it, then we actually don't know how we created it. And if we don't know that we're creating a problem, we're going to do it again, unless we realize what it is that we are creating and why are we creating it. So we're at a point of tremendous amount of realization. There's a lot of realization taking place internally with people, and probably you too. And that's like a part of you is being reborn. So a lot of you will experience stuff around your chest, around anxiety, around your throat, perhaps even headaches, but there's tremendous level of energy that just wants to just come out. In fact, what's happening is um, an old energy is coming up to the surface, old belief systems, old trauma, old drama, and it's wanting to move through us, and it has to move through the body. So a lot of people are experiencing weird stuff, discomforts, aches, weird symptoms that cannot be found, the root of what the root of it is, or cause that, and generally just feeling off. And that's because there's a lot of energy coming through right now. And I feel like it has something to do with the last portal that we just had. I think it was 11/11, but there was another one. Anyway, so you might be experiencing some. mm, I'm going to use the word ascension symptoms, even though I don't like that word. But yes, you will be experiencing some bodily things going on. Some of you may be getting sick. Some of you, the whole not sleeping well, that's a whole other thing. But yes, so your body is going through tremendous amount of um, uh, um, shifting in energy. So make sure you stay grounded. So anyway, um, I said, what does humanity need right now in terms of, what does it mean to love yourself? Tell me. So I have 4 points I'm going to talk about. First and foremost, what we need to be mindful is cleansing of parasites. And I don't just mean the body parasites. I mean anything that is negatively impacting us in our lives. Anything that sucks our energy dry, like a parasite. Parasite feeds off on you and then it makes you feel sick. So whether this is relationships, whether this is situations, whether this is, it has to do with programming. A lot of it has to do with programming. So many of you are likely going to go through a process where you are eliminating or deleting, letting go of things and people from your past. I want to say from your past, from your current, but also from your past. And again, relationships, it could be anything, but let's put it this way, you are in a process of decluttering. So some of you might want to declutter right about now. So one of the best way to love yourself is to cleanse yourself off of parasites, including people, what you hear, anything that negatively impacts you. Now, I'm going to put a caveat here. If you have a member of a family who you absolutely can't stand and they suck you dry, you can't completely eliminate them because, well, they're still part of they're part of your family, but you may maybe distance yourself from it. You may not engage in conversations in a certain way. You can learn to put like a shield around you so that this person's energy doesn't suck you dry. If you have to see them, there's many things that you can do to minimize somebody's negative energy, than only completely removing yourself from the situations. Because sometimes we can't. Like if you're working in in an environment where somebody's sucking you dry and their energy just sucks, but they're there, you're employed with them, then you just do things that minimize how they affect you. So you have to, if you have someone like that in your life, pretend, pretend or imagine yourself being bigger than that person, just being bigger. And imagine enveloping that person with your bigness, and then notice what happens. I have a feeling that when you do that exercise, when you see yourself as bigger than that person, and then you envelope them without any feelings of this dislike, but you actually are in acceptance of them, your relationship with that person is going to change. So try it out. That's actually quite interesting. Try it out, and see if it works. And I'm saying, explain to me like the nitty gritty. What does that mean? Basically, what you're doing is you're saying that you are bigger and more than how the person makes you feel, and you're choosing to focus and embody that rather than the irritation the person is triggering in you. And by doing so, it's like you're shifting your energy. You are literally shifting your energy, and you are almost disconnecting from that dynamic, and you see it from a bigger perspective. And you are in acceptance of it, but you're not engaged with it. And that apparently is supposed to change your relationships. Okay, I'm going to try that out. Number 2, fostering heightened awareness. So this is what we need to know as a humanity in order to learn to love ourselves more. Fostering heightened awareness. What does that mean? The greatest power you will ever have is in knowing who you are, knowing yourself. Knowledge is power, but it's not so much knowledge is power, it's what you do with it. So let's say you're a powerful person. Okay, so what? What are you going to do with it? Right? And here's the thing, you are a powerful person. You just may not know it, feel it, believe it, identify with, like it. You are a powerful being. The fact that you tell yourself that you're not powerful, it shows you how powerful you are because you tell yourself you're not powerful. So, fostering heightened awareness. What does that mean? Learn to pay more attention to listening to your inner voice. If you're really good at listening to your inner voice, then that's a very loving thing you are doing for yourself. Check mark. Okay? So that's just a reminder for you. If you're not trusting your intuition, if you deny your intuition, you are not as loving to yourself as you could be, because your intuition is, in other words, you're not really accepting your intuitive aspect. You just kind of are at a distance with it. Well, here's the deal. You are intuitive. We're all intuitives in varying degrees, but you are an intuitive. Listening to that intuition, listening to that inner voice is very important. Why? Because this inner voice has access to the universe. That inner voice has access to the knowledge library of the universe. Your mind does not. So the more you learn to listen to your intuition, the more you are able to perceive wisdom and higher knowledge that is, in most cases, much more elevated than our little thinking boxes. So it can help you solve and resolve situations in your life, and it can help you go about your decisions and your life's choices in a much more elevated way. It's an easier way to live. Being intuitively guided is an easier way to live. However, if we don't trust our intuition, we're not going to do that. We're going to be predominantly in a thinking box, which is all fine, but it's limited. Remember, you are limited and unlimited both at the same time. The trick is to bridge those two together and experience them both at the same time, which can be very almost impossible for the mind to grasp that. So the more you know yourself, the more you are intuitively guided, the more that is acting towards you being loving of yourself, because you're fully and totally accepting that you have a part of you that is more often than not way wiser than your logical head. Doesn't mean your logical head doesn't have good insight. It's very well versed on a 3D world, but its perceptions are its perceptions. They're short-sighted. Your intuitive aspect of you is wiser. So when we form the relationship of having our logic but also being intuitively guided and marrying those two together, which isn't always easy, but when we can do that, that is a very loving and very peaceful way to be. Very loving and very peaceful way to be. Number 3, stop pretending that we are small and not capable of massive feats. Stop pretending we are small and not capable of massive feats. Oh boy, that always, whenever they tell me this specific topic, I'm like, I know the whole small thing. I, as Joanna, the whole idea of small and blah, blah. I talk about it all the time, actually. The whole idea of smallness, but actually experiencing our bigness and those two contrasts. So stop pretending we are small. Yes, we might be small in stature. We might be small in bank account. We might be small in our house. We might be small in comparison to everything that exists. But we are also incredibly big and massive in terms of our potential. We are so much more, so much more. And the less we think of our smallness as our identity, and the more we identify with our bigness, with our capabilities and abilities, the more we will experience that, which is a lot more. A lot more. We can experience so much more. We can create so much more. We can create so much bigger, but not without first understanding that we have the power to do that. That we have the power to do that. I have a conversation with my wiser aspect, and then the logic kicks in, and often it's like, "Rrr." So my logic is like, yeah, easier said than done, and it's coming up with a whole bunch of different reasons why I should deny what I just said, that we are immensely powerful beings. Because I know that we are, but I also have a human mind that says I'm not, because it's how I was trained. So I have to always find a way to get unstuck from this smallness idea and keep reminding myself that I am so much more than that, which is why I'm here and what I'm doing for you. Hopefully, I'm helping you remember that you are not your thoughts, that you are not your belief systems, that you are not your feelings, that you are not your emotions. Those are all part of your experience, but you are more than that. Period. What you do with it is up to you. I hope that it makes you feel empowered. I hope that it makes you scratch your head and go, maybe there is something more to me than what I've been telling myself. That's the whole point. It's what you tell yourself, consciously or otherwise, that creates your reality. What do you tell yourself? What do you tell yourself that minimizes your ability to experience more of you? And here's the thing, it's not a conversation that you're aware of. It's mostly in the unconscious. But your unconscious is always going to be playing out in your life. Your unconscious is always going to find a way to play itself out in the world. You're going to project that, right? So if you are example, I always use this example, but if you are experiencing lack of money, then there is some part within you that identifies with lack of money. It identifies itself with lack of money, and that's what's projecting it outward, lack of money. So your experience becomes one of lack of money. It's because you identify with that. How do I know that? Because if you identified with abundance of money, you wouldn't experience lack of money. Maybe for a short period, but then you'll go right back. So we have to start shifting what we think in terms of our capabilities. We, as humanity collectively, can profoundly change our world, but not without changing our own inner world, because our outer world is the reflection of our collective inner world. That's just the way it is. We birth life into life all the time. We are that immensely powerful. Okay? So, to stop pretending that we are small is to realize everything I just said. Make it real, not just know it, make it real, embody it. And they're, because my mind is getting in the way. What? You don't have to have wings to fly to know what it feels like to feel free. At some point in your life, you experienced freedom, likely in your childhood, maybe in few moments. You don't have to be a bird to experience freedom. I don't know why I said that. Yeah, I don't quite understand why that I said that, but I think the mind was trying to figure out, well, what do you mean I get to do? I'm so powerful. I can't fly. Yeah, well, you can't fly because you have a physical body that's called human body. You're not a bird. So no, you're not going to fly that way with wings, but You can experience what it feels like to feel free or to take flight by using various other ways. Because the ego is always objecting, right? Well, if I'm this powerful, why can't I do this or that? Well, first and foremost, do you really want to? Number one. Number two, yeah, well, you should have been born in a different body. I'm having a bit of fun with this one because the ego is always objecting, always objecting. What do you mean I'm powerful? I am wanting this and why I'm not getting it? Well, because you have some kind of a belief system that says you can't have that. You're that powerful, so you're creating it. And then he gets mad. Ego is very funny. Number four, resign from situations that no longer serve you. And I wrote the word resign and I circled it because it was important for me to use the word resign. What does it mean to resign? To gracefully let go. I quit. No, I resign. You're not letting go out of anger. You're just saying, thank you, this no longer works for me. So letting go from situations that no longer serve us. How do I know if something doesn't serve me? Oh, you know. If you don't know, you know. We often know, we're just in denial of it for various reasons. Something isn't serving you, it's very obvious. You feel it. You just know it. You know when it doesn't serve you because you can feel it. If you can't feel it, then it either serves you or maybe you have to dig deeper. So I suspect that you will know what I'm talking about if it applies to you when I say let go from situations that no longer serve you. And it could be anything. It could be from a group of friends. It could be from work. It could be something lighter, like you decide to change, go to a different park. Uh, Basically, letting go of something that's no longer that are no longer working for you in a positive way. And that can sometimes feel very cold-hearted because you may be friends with somebody for a lot of times, but you're finding that the more you expand your heart, the more her or his, well, usually it will be her, the more her pessimistic point of view makes you feel like it's just, oh, and it's a very icky energy. And you're only noticing that because you've been doing a lot of work with yourself, because before you did the work, you were kind of sort of in the same vibration. So you were all agreeing, you were both on the same page, but now you're not. And there is this awkwardness that when you talk, it almost feels like it's not real, it's awkward. It's not what it used to be. This is a situation where something is showing you that situation is probably no longer serving you. Your body's telling you that it feels tired, that it feels achy, that it feels maybe even sick, that it feels off when you're around that person, that it feels drained. Your body's telling you. You'll know. And then you have to make a choice. Or you continue the same pattern, which would be, okay, if you know something is not serving you, but you keep doing it, well, then are you trying to be a pleaser? Like the idea of pleasing is coming up right now. If you tend to be an over pleaser, perhaps you decide to no longer do that by understanding why you over please, for example, shadow work. I'll tell you one thing. If you are prone to over pleasing, yeah, I guarantee you it comes from a space of not loving yourself. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Because over-pleasing tendency leads from fear of being abandoned, of being left behind, of feeling not needed. It always comes from fear. So if you have a tendency to over-please, there's a fear underneath that tells you that unless you please, something bad is going to happen. So for those of you who this makes sense, I would really encourage you to look at that so that you can let go of the over-pleasing personality. I'm not saying don't be pleasing, like pleased, I'm not saying that, but over-pleasing is, you guys know. Anything else? I feel that we are in a very powerful position right now as humanity, and that we get to decide how we want to live the rest of our lives. But not just deciding, we need to be willing to make some changes and sometimes some sacrifices. And without these sacrifices, we can't have something new. Now, sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. It just means that we must be willing to let something go in order to experience something different. First and foremost, our thinking and our belief systems. Because if we continue to think the same way, we'll continue to experience the same world. It goes hand in hand. So remember, we're in this space where there's a lot of shifting happening energetically, and this energy is really supportive of massive consciousness change, massive consciousness change. And if you're a sensitive, you're probably already feeling everything that I'm sharing with you. So just know that we as humanity are in a profound space of being able to make massive feats happen. But we have to start from within because our consciousness is made up of all individual consciousnesses. And that's all inner work, which is what I love to do with my team. So if you're ever wondering if I help people basically um, own their power, I could put it that way, I would be more than honored to work with you, and so would be my guides. But that information is down below. You can connect with me if you like. So that's what I have for you guys this week. I hope you liked it. It was different. I was resisting it a lot because I knew it wasn't going to flow the way I wanted to control it. But okay, here it is. Let me know how you like it, what you thought, what kind of triggered you in whatever way. And thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.